That afternoon, I learned that fear tastes like blood in your mouth. My name is Mary Johnson. I'm 66 years old, and for a long time, I believed a mother's love could conquer anything. I thought being kind was enough. I thought dedicating my entire life to my son was enough for him to respect me. I was wrong. Today, I'm going to tell you something I kept hidden for years, something I was ashamed to admit even to myself. Because there are certain pains you hide, not out of cowardice, but because speaking them out loud is accepting that the world you thought you lived in never actually existed. It all began one afternoon in October. I was in my kitchen, the house I bought with 40 years of sweat, working as a schoolteacher. The walls smelled of cinnamon and hot cocoa, just like always. Outside, the lilac bush I planted when Tom was born was still blooming purple, bright and loyal in the yard. I heard the front door open. I recognized his footsteps immediately, heavy and rushed. "Mum, we need to talk," Tom said from the living room. His voice sounded different, harder, colder. I set my coffee mug on the counter and walked out to greet him. He was wearing a wrinkled shirt, and his eyes had a strange shine to them. Behind him was my daughter-in-law, Amy, with that smile that never quite reached her eyes. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Johnson," she said, almost singing. I didn't answer. Something in my chest warned me that this visit wasn't casual. "Sit down, Mom," Tom ordered. He ordered. He didn't ask. He ordered me. I sat in the armchair where I had rocked him so many times as a child, where I read him stories, where I taught him to say his prayers. Amy closed the front door. The sound of the deadbolt chilling my blood. Tom pulled a folded paper from his pant pocket. He tossed it onto the coffee table. "It's a power of attorney," he said. "You're going to sign it." I didn't understand, or I didn't want to understand. "A power of attorney? What for, son?" "So I can manage your things, the house, the accounts, everything." My heart started to beat slowly, as if trying to save its strength. "Tom, this house is mine. I worked my whole life for it." He leaned toward me. His face was so close I could smell the alcohol on his breath. "Exactly, Mum. You worked. You're old now. You can't handle all this anymore. You need help." "I don't need help, son. I'm fine." Amy let out a small laugh from across the room. That laugh pierced me like a knife. "Oh, Mrs. Mary, don't be difficult. It's for your own good." Tom straightened up. He walked toward the shelf where I kept the family photos. He picked one up, the one of his father, my husband, the man who died 12 years ago, leaving me with the promise that our son would take care of me. "Do you think Dad would want to see you like this, alone, stubborn?" Tears started to burn my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. "Your dad would want me to decide my own life." Tom put the photograph down on the table. Too hard. The glass of the frame cracked. "Sign it, Mum." "No." That word came out without me thinking. Firm, clear. And then it happened. Tom took off his belt. The black leather slid through his pant loops with a sound I still hear at night. He wrapped it around his right hand. His knuckles turned white. "I'm going to ask you one last time, Mum. Are you going to sign or not?" Sometimes we trust the wrong people too much. Have you ever been disappointed by someone you loved? Tell me your story in the comments. I want to read them. I looked at the belt. I looked at my son. And in his eyes, I found none of what I had known for 42 years. "I will not sign anything, Tom." Amy clapped slowly from her corner, as if watching a play. "Oh, how brave," she said, with that sickly sweet voice she always used when she wanted to hurt me. "Just look at that." Grandma's got spunk. Tom raised the belt. I closed my eyes. And right at that moment, someone rang the doorbell. Ding dong! The sound echoed throughout the house. Tom froze. Amy stopped smiling. "Who is it?" she asked in a thin voice. "I don't know," I whispered. They rang again, this time louder. Ding dong, ding dong. Amy walked toward the door with slow steps. Tom hid the belt behind his back. She opened it, and then she started to scream. Amy's scream brought me back to reality like a bucket of cold water. She stumbled backward, hands over her mouth, eyes wide. From where I was sitting, I couldn't see who had rung the bell, but I heard a man's voice, serious and calm. "Good afternoon. Is this where Mrs. Mary Johnson lives?" Tom dropped the belt to the floor. The leather hit the hardwood with a dry thump. Who are you?" he stammered. Two men walked into my living room. One was wearing an impeccable grey suit and carrying a leather briefcase. The other wore a uniform, a police officer's uniform. "I am Mr. David Williams, attorney for the Johnson family," said the man in the suit. "And this is Officer Miller. We received your call, Mrs. Mary. We are here to ensure no one forces you to sign anything." Amy started shaking her head, as if she could undo what was happening with pure movement. "No, no, no! This is a misunderstanding." Officer Miller looked at the belt on the floor. Then he looked at Tom. He didn't say anything, but he didn't have to. "I didn't make any call," I said, my voice choked. Mr. Williams approached me with slow, respectful steps. He crouched down to be at my level. "I know, Ma'am, but someone who loves you very much did." In that moment, I understood everything. I understood who had called, and I understood that my life was about to change forever. But let me tell you how I got here, because a story like this doesn't start in a moment of terror. It starts much earlier, in the days when everything seemed perfect. When Tom was born, I was 24 years old. I was a third-grade teacher at a public school in downtown Chicago. My husband, Robert, worked in a textile factory. We didn't have much, but we had enough. And we had love. I remember the morning I brought Tom home for the first time. I wrapped him in a sky-blue blanket my mother had knitted for him. Robert drove slowly, so carefully, as if the whole world were made of glass. "That's it, my love," he said when we arrived. "Our family is complete," and I believed him. We raised Tom with kindness and discipline. We taught him the value of hard work, respect, and keeping your word. Every morning before school, we ate breakfast together at the kitchen table. Pancakes, bacon, and orange juice. I asked him about his dreams, and he told me with those bright eyes of a child who still believes anything is possible. "Mum, when I grow up, I'm going to buy you a huge house," he would tell me, his mouth full of a blueberry muffin, with a yard and a swimming pool. I ruffled his hair. "I don't need a huge house, my son. I just need you to be good." Robert would laugh from the other side of the table, reading the newspaper with a mug of coffee in his hand. "This boy is going to fulfill everything for you, Mary. You'll see." And I wanted to believe him. With all my heart, I wanted to believe him. On Sundays, we went to church, all three of us. Tom put on his white shirt and black dress shoes that were always a little too big, because I bought them thinking they would last longer. We sat in the third pew, always the same one. Robert on the aisle side, me in the middle, Tom by the wall, where he could rest his head on my shoulder when the sermon got long. After church, we walked through the town square. Tom ran after the pigeons, Robert held my hand, and I thought, with absolute certainty, that this was happiness, this and nothing else. When Tom turned 12, Robert gave him a red bicycle. It wasn't new, but he had restored it with his own hands. He changed the tires, painted the metal, adjusted the brakes. "It's yours, son," he said. "Take care of it. The things you take care of last a lifetime." Tom hugged it as if it were pure gold. "Thank you, Dad. I promise I'll always take care of it." That bicycle lasted 5 months. Tom left it outside one rainy night, and it rusted. Robert didn't say anything to him, but I saw the sadness in his eyes. And I saw something else, something I didn't want to name at the time: disappointment. When Tom was 17, Robert got sick. It was fast, too fast. A pain in the chest that at first seemed like indigestion, then dizziness, then the diagnosis: his heart. He spent 2 months in the hospital. I went to see him every afternoon after teaching classes. I brought him lime-flavored Jell-O, his favorite. I read him the newspaper out loud. I told him neighborhood gossip to make him laugh. Tom went less often. He always had homework. He always had exams. There was always something more important. One afternoon, Robert took my hand in his. They were cold, too cold. "Mary, promise me something, anything, my love. Take care of Tom, but don't spoil him too much. That boy needs to learn that life hurts." I didn't understand what he meant. Or maybe I did, but I didn't want to accept it. Robert died on a Tuesday morning. I was at school when they called me. By the time I got to the hospital, it was too late. They let me into the room. His body was still warm. I closed his eyes, kissed his forehead, and quietly promised him that I would take care of our son, that he would never want for anything. That promise was my first mistake. After the funeral, Tom changed. He became quiet, distant. He spent hours locked in his room listening to music I didn't understand. He stopped having breakfast with me, stopped telling me his things. I tried to get closer. I prepared his favorite dishes, ironed his clothes, left $20 on his dresser for his expenses. "Sweetheart, if you need to talk, I'm here," I would say, knocking on his bedroom door. "I'm fine, Mum," he always replied, without opening it. Years passed. Tom finished high school, entered college to study business administration. I paid every tuition bill with my teacher's salary. Sometimes I had to work double shifts, give private lessons, sell homemade cookies on the weekends. I didn't care. He was my son, my only son. When he graduated, I threw a party in the backyard. I invited all the neighbors. I prepared barbecue, potato salad, baked beans, and lemonade. I hung colorful streamers between the trees. Tom arrived late, and he arrived with her, Amy. She was tall, thin, with dyed blonde hair and long red painted nails. She was wearing a tight dress and very high heels. She greeted me with 2 air kisses, without actually touching me. "Nice to meet you, Mom. Tom has told me so much about you." Lie. I knew it immediately. Tom never talked about me. "The pleasure is mine," I replied, smiling. But something inside me shrank, something ancient, something my mother used to call the eye of experience. That night, after everyone left, Tom stayed to help me clear the dishes. It was the first time in months we were alone. "I like Amy," I said, even though it wasn't entirely true. "She's going to be my wife, Mum." I dropped a glass. It shattered against the kitchen floor. "Your wife? Have you already decided?" "Yes, we're getting married next year." I picked up the glass pieces with trembling hands. One cut my finger. Blood stained the dish towel. "Do you love her?" Tom didn't answer immediately, and that silence told me everything I needed to know. "It's my decision, Mum." "I know, my son. I just want you to be happy." He knelt down to help me with the glass. "I will be. You'll see." But when he looked at me, there was something in his eyes that wasn't happiness. It was fear. And I, like all mothers who love too much, decided not to see it. The wedding was in June, a month I had always liked, because the sky over New York turns a clean, almost childish blue. But that June was grey. It rained the day of the ceremony. I had saved for 2 years to help them. I paid for the venue, the catering, the cake, the flowers. Amy wanted white roses, thousands of white roses. I counted every dollar that left my wallet, but I didn't say anything. It's for my son, I repeated to myself. It's for his happiness. The night before the wedding, Tom came home, alone. He sat at the kitchen table, where we had shared breakfast so many times, and stared at the cup of coffee I had served him without drinking it. "Are you nervous, sweetheart?" I asked, sitting across from him. He nodded slowly. "It's normal. Your dad was nervous on our wedding day too. He messed up the vows 3 times." I tried to smile. Tom didn't return the smile. "Mum," he started, and then stopped. "Tell me, son. Anything." He looked up. His eyes were the same ones he had when he was 5 years old and came running to hug me after school. But now there was something broken in them. "Do you think Dad would be proud of me?" The question pierced me like a hot wire. "Of course, Tom. Your dad loved you more than anything in this world." But I didn't go to see him as much as I should have when he was in the hospital. I got up from my chair and walked around the table to hug him. I put my hands on his shoulders. They were broad now, strong. He wasn't my little boy anymore, but he was still my child. "Your dad understood, my son. You were young. You were scared." "I'm still scared," he whispered. "Of what?" He didn't answer. He just hugged me, hard, like he hadn't hugged me since he was a child. And I felt, in that embrace, a goodbye. The ceremony was in a small church in the neighborhood. Amy arrived half an hour late, as she said all elegant brides did. I was sitting in the first pew, wearing a navy blue dress I had bought on sale. Next to me was Mrs. Carroll, my lifelong neighbor, who had come to keep me company. "The young man looks handsome," Carol whispered, squeezing my hand. "Just like his father," I replied, and the tears began to burn my eyes. When Amy entered, everyone turned. She wore an enormous white gown, with rhinestones and a train so long that 2 flower girls had to carry it. Her makeup was perfect. Her smile was too perfect, too rehearsed. She walked toward the altar with slow steps, to the rhythm of the music. But she didn't look at Tom. She looked at the guests, as if she were on a runway. The ceremony was quick. The minister spoke about love, patience, and forgiveness. Amy sighed impatiently. Tom kept his gaze fixed on the floor. When the minister asked if he accepted Amy as his wife, it took Tom 3 seconds to answer. 3 seconds that felt like an eternity. "I do." His voice came out hoarse, broken. Amy smiled, that smile that never reached her eyes. The reception was at an event hall near the church. There were more than 150 people. I only knew 20. The rest were Amy's friends, Amy's family, people who talked loudly, laughed louder, and drank without measure. I sat at a table in the back, next to Carol and some teachers from school. No one invited me to sit at the head table, not even Tom. "Shouldn't you be up there with the newlyweds?" asked one of the teachers, pointing to the table where Tom and Amy were toasting with champagne. "I don't want to bother them," I replied. But the truth was different. No one had invited me, and I didn't dare to go. Halfway through dinner, Amy asked for the microphone. She stood up, in her sparkly dress with her glass raised, and began to speak. "I want to thank everyone for coming to celebrate this special day with us. especially my family, who have always been there for me, and Tom, of course, for choosing me as his life partner. She paused. People applauded. And I also want to thank my mother-in-law, Mrs. Mary, who was kind enough to help us with some of the wedding expenses. Some expenses. I had paid for almost everything, but I didn't say anything. I just smiled from my table in the back. And when Amy pointed at me, everyone turned to look at me as if they had just realized I existed. Carol squeezed my hand under the table. Breathe, honey. Just breathe. That night, when the party ended, I helped clear the tables. The waitresses tried to stop me. No, ma'am, we'll take care of it. It's no trouble, I replied. I needed to do something with my hands, something to help me not think. Tom and Amy left early for their honeymoon, Miami. Everything paid for, a gift from her parents. They didn't say goodbye to me, they just sent me a text the next day. We arrived, all good. Call you later. They didn't call. When they returned 2 weeks later, I had cleaned and organized the house they rented. It was a small apartment about a half-hour away. I painted the walls, washed the windows, put up new curtains and filled the fridge. "Oh, mother-in-law, you shouldn't have bothered," Amy said when she saw everything. But her tone wasn't one of gratitude. It was annoyance. "It wasn't a bother, honey. I want you to start off well." Tom didn't say anything. He just walked through the apartment with his hands in his pockets, looking at everything with an empty expression. "Do you like it, son?" I asked. "Yes, Mum. It's fine." But he didn't look at me when he said it. The first few months were quiet. I visited them on Sundays. I brought them food, lasagna, chili, whatever I had cooked. Amy always greeted me at the door without inviting me in. "Oh, mother-in-law, how sweet. But we're busy right now." Tom would appear behind her, looking tired. "Mum, maybe we'll see you another day, okay?" "Sure, sweetheart. Sure." And I would leave with the full food containers in my hands, wondering what I had done wrong. As I tell all this, I wonder where you are listening to me. Write the name of your city in the comments. One afternoon, 6 months after the wedding, Tom came to my house without warning. He knocked on the door so hard, I thought something terrible had happened. "What is it, son? Are you all right?" He walked in without answering. He collapsed onto the living room sofa. He had deep circles under his eyes. His hands were shaking. "I need money, Mum." "Money? What for?" "To pay off some debts. Credit cards." Amy took out some. She bought, a lot of things. Clothes, shoes, I don't know. And now we can't pay. I felt the ground move beneath my feet. "How much do you owe?" $20,000. $20,000. Almost 3 months of my salary. "Son, I don't have that kind of money." "Yes, you do, Mum. I know you have savings." It was true. I had savings. I had put them away for years for my retirement, for when I couldn't work anymore. "Tom, that money is for..." "For what, Mum? What are you going to use it for if you live alone? I'm your family. I should be your priority." His words hit me like stones. "You have always been my priority, sweetheart. Always. So help me, please." I looked at my son. I looked at the man he had become, and I didn't recognize anything in him. But he was my son, and I had promised Robert I would take care of him. "All right," I whispered. "I'll help you." I gave him the money the next day. Tom took it without looking me in the eyes. He didn't thank me. He just said, "I'll pay you back, Mum. I promise." He never did. 2 months later, he asked me for money again, then again, and again. It was always the same. Amy bought things, Tom asked for money, and I gave it. Until one day, a Saturday afternoon, Tom arrived with Amy. Both of them. Serious. "Mum, we have to talk to you." "Of course, sweetheart. Sit down. Would you like some coffee?" "No, Mum. We don't want coffee. We want to talk about the house." "The house?" Amy crossed her arms. She was wearing a new sweater. Camel. Soft. Expensive. "This house is too big for you alone, Mrs. Mary. It's a shame to have it empty." "It's not empty. I live here." "Yes, but you're only one person. There are two of us, and soon there will be more." It took me a second to understand. "Are you pregnant?" Amy smiled. For the first time, her smile looked real. 3 months. I should have felt joy. I should have shouted, cried with happiness, hugged my son. But the only thing I felt was fear. "Congratulations," I said in a flat voice. "Thank you, mother-in-law. That's why we need more space. And we thought the most logical thing would be for you to come live with us in the apartment. And we will stay here." The world stopped. "What?" Tom leaned forward. He put his hands on my knees. "Mum, think about it. The apartment is smaller, easier to maintain. And this house has 3 bedrooms. The baby needs its own room." "Tom, this is my house. I bought it. I paid for it." "I know, Mum. No one is taking anything away from you. We're just asking you to lend it to us for a while." "For a while? And then what?" Amy sighed impatiently. "Oh, Mrs. Mary, don't be dramatic. We just want what's best for your grandchild." I looked at Tom. I searched his eyes for any sign of the boy he had been, the boy who ran after pigeons in the town square, the boy who promised to buy me a huge house when he grew up. I found nothing. "Let me think about it," I said. Tom stood up. Amy did too. "There's not much to think about, Mum. It's your grandchild, your family." And they left. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at the kitchen table, looking at the cup of coffee getting cold in my hands, and for the first time in many years, I thought about Robert, about his last request. Take care of Tom, but don't spoil him too much. It was too late. I had already spoiled him too much, and now I was paying the price. 3 weeks passed before they brought up the subject again. 3 weeks in which I woke up every morning with a knot in my stomach, wondering how I had gotten here. At night, I sat in the living room armchair, the same one where Robert used to read the newspaper, and looked at the walls of my house. Every one of them had a story. There was the mark from when Tom learned to ride his bike inside the house and crashed into the wall. There was the coffee stain I could never get out of the floor. There was the photo of our wedding, with Robert smiling and me in the white dress my mother had sewn with her own hands. This house was my entire life, and my son wanted me to hand it over. One afternoon, they arrived without warning. Both of them. Amy was wearing a loose pink blouse that barely showed her 4-month bump. Tom was holding a yellow folder in his hand. "Mum, we have good news," he said, sitting on the sofa without my inviting him. "What news?" Amy settled beside him, putting her hand on her belly in that gesture all pregnant women make when they want people to notice their condition. "We know what the baby is," she announced in a sing-song voice. "It's a girl." I should have felt something. Excitement, tenderness, hope. But the only thing I felt was a cold emptiness in my chest. "That's nice, honey. Congratulations." Tom opened the folder and took out some papers. He put them on the coffee table. "We talked to a lawyer, Mum, and he told us the easiest way to do this is for you to give me power of attorney. That way I can manage the house, make the changes we need, and you can relax in the apartment without having to worry about anything." I took the papers with trembling hands. The letters danced before my eyes. Words I didn't understand. clauses, legal terms. Power of attorney. Why do you need that, son? To be able to remodel, Mum. We want to make a room for the baby girl. Paint it pink. Put down a soft rug. You know, baby things. But this house is mine, Tom. If you want to remodel, we can do it together. You don't need power of attorney. Amy let out a little laugh, that laugh that was already getting on my nerves. Oh, Mrs. Mary, you don't understand how these things work. If the house is in your name, we need permits for everything. It's easier if Tom can decide. Decide what? Everything, Mum, Tom intervened. Whatever is best for the house, for the baby, for the family. I looked at the papers. Then I looked at my son. Give me a few days to think about it. Amy's smile disappeared. A few days? For what? Don't you trust your own son? It's not that, honey. It's just that. It's just nothing, mother-in-law. Either you trust us or you don't. There's no middle ground. Tom put his hand on Amy's, as if trying to calm her down. Mum, if you don't want to sign, don't sign. We'll manage somehow, even if it's difficult. Even if the baby has to sleep in our room, because we don't have the money to move to a bigger place. I felt the blow of guilt like a slap. I didn't say I wasn't going to sign, son. I just asked for a few days. Okay, Mum, take your time. But the tone of his voice said the opposite. They left the papers on the table. I couldn't eat dinner that night. I sat staring at that yellow folder as if it were a bomb about to explode. 2 days later, Carol came to visit me. She always knew when something was wrong. She arrived with a pot of chicken noodle soup and a bag of biscuits. Oh, Mary, you look terrible. What's wrong? I told her everything. The debts, the requests for money, the house, the power of attorney. Carol put her coffee cup down on the table harder than necessary. And what are you planning to do? I don't know, Carol. He's my son. She's my granddaughter. It's your house, Mary. Your whole life is in this house. I know. But if I don't help them, what kind of grandmother am I? Carol took my hands. Hers were rough, full of years of work and sacrifice, like mine. Listen to me carefully, honey. I raised 4 children. 4. And I'm going to tell you something I learned the hard way. A mother's love has to have limits, because if it doesn't, the children will eat it all up, everything, until there's nothing left of you. But I don't want my granddaughter to suffer because of me. That baby is not going to suffer because you don't give them your house, Mary. She's going to suffer if she grows up seeing her parents manipulate her grandmother to get what they want. Is that what you want to teach her? I didn't answer, because I had no answer. Carol stayed with me late. When she left, she hugged me tightly at the door. Think about yourself, Mary. For once in your life, think about yourself. But I couldn't, because that very night, Tom called me. His voice sounded strange, choked. Mum, can I come over? Of course, sweetheart. Did something happen? I'll be right there. He arrived a half-hour later, alone, without Amy. His eyes were red, as if he had been crying. What happened, son? Where is Amy? At the apartment. We had a fight. Why? He sank into the armchair. He covered his face with his hands. Because I told her maybe we were pressuring you too much, that maybe we should look for another solution, and she got furious. My heart leaped. For the first time in months, I recognized my son. Oh, sweetheart, come here. I sat down next to him. I hugged him like when he was a child. He rested his head on my shoulder. I don't know what to do, Mum. She always wants more. More clothes, more things, more money. And I can't anymore. I just can't. Then tell her no, son. Set a limit for her. I can't. She's pregnant. If I make things difficult, she says she's going to leave, that she's going to take the baby, and I don't want to lose my daughter before I even meet her. I felt something break inside me. My son was trapped, and I was the only one who could save him, or so I thought. All right, Tom, I'll sign the papers. He lifted his head. He looked at me with bright eyes. Really, Mum? Really, but with one condition. Anything. That you keep the house, but that it be only yours, not Amy's, just yours. And when the baby is born, I want to see her. I want to be part of her life. Of course, Mum. Of course you can. I promise. He hugged me tightly, so tightly I could barely breathe, and I felt for a moment that I had made the right decision. I was wrong. I signed the papers a week later. The three of us went to the notary's office, Tom, Amy, and I. The notary read the entire document aloud, long, complicated words. I was only half listening. Do you understand, Mrs. Johnson, that by signing this power of attorney, you are granting your son the authority to manage, sell, mortgage, or perform any legal act on the property located at— Yes, I understand. And you do this of your own free will, without any pressure. I looked at Tom. He smiled at me. That smile I had seen thousands of times when he was a child and was asking me permission for something. Yes, of my own free will. Lie. I signed where they told me, 3 times, with my full name. Mary Johnson, widow of Robert. Amy clapped when I finished. Oh, mother-in-law, I knew you'd understand. Now we're a real family. The notary handed us the copies. Amy put hers in her purse. Quickly, as if she were afraid I would change my mind. We left the notary's office. It was hot. The sun burned my skin. And when will you help me move to the apartment? I asked. Tom and Amy looked at each other. Soon, Mum. Very soon. First, we have to arrange a few things. What things? Baby things. You know. And they left. I was left standing on the street, with my copy of the document in my hands, feeling as if I had just signed my own death warrant. For the next 2 months, I tried to contact them. I called them. I texted them. I brought them food. I always got the same response. We're busy, Mum. We'll talk later. One afternoon, I decided to go without warning. I knocked on the apartment door. No one opened it. But I heard voices inside. Laughter. I knocked harder. Tom! Sweetheart. It's me. Open up. Silence. I knocked again, until my knuckles hurt. Finally, the door opened. Amy appeared in a silk robe. Her hair was down. Perfect makeup. Oh, mother-in-law, what are you doing here? I came to see you. I haven't heard from you in weeks. Well, we've been very busy with the baby preparations. Can I come in? It's not a good time, Mrs. Mary. Just for a little while. I want to see Tom. Tom is resting. Please, Amy. She sighed. She opened the door just enough for me to see inside. The apartment was full of boxes, new boxes, with expensive store logos, baby clothes, furniture, toys. Where did you get the money for all this? I asked. Amy smiled. That smile I knew so well. From the mortgage on your house, mother-in-law. Didn't Tom tell you? The world stopped. What mortgage? Why, the one Tom took out last week. With the power of attorney you gave him, they lent us $500,000 for the baby to start off well. $500,000. My house. The house I had paid for over 40 years. the house where I had raised my son, the house where Robert had died, mortgaged. "Where is Tom?" I whispered. "I already told you he's resting." "Tom!" I shouted. Amy tried to close the door, but I pushed it open. I entered the apartment. Tom was on the sofa with a beer in his hand, watching television. "Is it true, son? Did you mortgage my house?" Tom didn't even turn to look at me. "We needed the money, Mum." "But it's my house." "Not anymore, Mum. It's mine now. You gave me the power. You signed." I felt my legs shaking. "But you promised. You promised it would be only yours, that you would let me see the baby." Amy crossed her arms. "And you will see her, mother-in-law, when we decide. Now, if you'll excuse us, we have things to do." She took me by the arm. She led me out of the apartment. She closed the door in my face. I was left standing in the hallway, alone, trembling. And for the first time in my life, I understood what it means to be completely broken. I returned to my house, or what had been my house. I went inside. I sat at the kitchen table, and I cried. I cried for Robert, for not having listened to him, for not having set limits when I should have. I cried for Tom, for the boy he was, for the man he had become. I cried for myself, for my naivety, for my blind love, and when I had no more tears left, I stood up. I washed my face. I looked at myself in the mirror, and I made a decision. If my son had decided to destroy me, I would let him do it, but with dignity. I would stay in my house until they came to drag me out. I wasn't going to fight. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to keep the only thing I had left: my dignity, even if I had to lose everything. The next 3 months were the longest of my life. I stayed in the house, as I had decided, but it wasn't my house anymore. It was a borrowed space, a space where I was tolerated until they decided otherwise. Every night I went to bed wondering when someone would knock on the door: a bank, a lawyer, someone who would tell me I had to leave because the mortgage hadn't been paid, because my son had decided to sell, because there was no room for me anymore. Tom never called me again, not even when the baby was born. I found out on Facebook a photo of Amy in the hospital with a baby wrapped in a pink blanket. The caption read, "Valerie Mendoza Garcia, 7 pounds, 2 ounces, the love of our lives." 500 comments, 500 hearts, 500 strangers celebrating the arrival of my granddaughter. And I, the grandmother, found out on a social network. I cried myself to sleep that night. And I dreamed of Robert. I saw him sitting in the living room armchair, reading the newspaper as he used to do. He looked at me over the pages and said, "It's time, Mary. It's time for you to defend yourself." I woke up with my heart racing and the sheets soaked with sweat. A week after Valerie's birth, I went to the apartment. I carried a gift wrapped in pink paper. A teddy bear I had bought with the little money I had left from my last paycheck. I had already retired from school. My pension was small. It barely covered my food. I knocked on the door. Once, twice, 3 times. No one opened it, but I heard the baby crying inside. A high-pitched cry. Desperate, I knocked harder. "Amy, Tom, it's me. I just want to meet my granddaughter." The crying stopped. I heard footsteps. The door opened just a crack. Amy's eye appeared in the gap. "What do you want, Mrs. Mary?" "I came to meet Valerie. I'm her grandmother." "It's not a good time. The baby is sleeping." But I just heard her crying. She just fell asleep. Another day, mother-in-law. "Amy, please." Just let me see her for a moment. 1 minute. The door opened a little more. Amy was wearing a wrinkled pajama, her hair was dirty, and she had deep bags under her eyes. Behind her, the apartment looked like a mess. Clothes were thrown everywhere, dirty dishes on the table. Is everything all right, honey? Do you need help? We don't need anything, Mrs. Mary. I already told you. We're fine. But I could help you. I could cook, clean, watch the baby while you rest. Something changed in Amy's gaze. A spark, a calculation. Really? Of course, honey. That's what grandmothers are for. She opened the door completely. She let me in. The apartment smelled of sour milk and dirty diapers. The curtains were closed. The light was dim, almost sad. She's in the bedroom, Amy said, pointing toward the back. I walked slowly, my heart pounding in my throat. I pushed the bedroom door open, and there she was. Valerie, my granddaughter, asleep in a white crib, with her tiny fists clenched next to her face. She had dark hair like Tom when he was born, fine eyebrows, a small nose. She was perfect. I approached without making a sound. I stood looking at her for what seemed like hours, but was probably just minutes. I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. She's beautiful, I whispered. Amy appeared behind me. Yes, she looks like Tom. Where is he? Working. He's always working. And how are you, honey? Are you resting? Amy sat on the bed. Suddenly she looked very young, very tired. I don't sleep. The baby wakes up every 2 hours. She cries all the time, and I don't know what to do. For the first time since I met her, I saw something real in her. Fear, exhaustion, vulnerability. It's normal, Amy. The first few months are hard, but they pass. I promise. My mum says it's my fault, that I should have learned before having kids. It's no one's fault. You learn how to be a mother by doing it. Valerie started to move. She opened her eyes. She had Robert's eyes, dark and deep. Can I hold her? I asked. Amy hesitated. Then she nodded. I carefully lifted Valerie. I held her against my chest. She smelled like a baby, that mix of milk and powder that is the sweetest smell in the world. Hello, my love, I whispered to her. I'm your Grandma Mary, and I've been waiting for you for so long. Valerie looked at me with those enormous eyes, and she smiled. A baby's smile. Involuntary, but it went straight through my heart. Look, Amy. She's smiling. But when I turned around, Amy was on her phone, typing something. She wasn't even looking at us. I stayed for 4 hours that day. I changed diapers. I warmed up bottles. I washed dishes. Amy went to take a shower. Then she fell asleep. When Tom arrived, it was already evening. He walked in with a wrinkled shirt and a loose tie. Mum, what are you doing here? I came to meet my granddaughter, and I stayed to help. Tom looked around. The apartment was clean, tidy. It smelled like food. I had made chicken soup. Thank you, Mum. You're welcome, my son. We stayed in silence, him looking at the floor, me looking at him. I'm sorry for not calling you, he finally said. I've been very busy. I know, son. I know. Do you want to stay for dinner? It was the first time in months he had invited me to stay. The first time he had spoken to me without coldness. I'd love to. The 3 of us ate dinner. Amy barely spoke, neither did Tom. But I felt happy. For the first time in so long, I felt like I was part of something. When I left, Tom walked me to the door. Mum, Could you come tomorrow to help with the baby? Just for a little while. Of course, my son. Whenever you need me. Thank you. Really, thank you. He hugged me. Quick. Awkward. But he hugged me. And I went home with something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope that maybe, just maybe, things were going to get better. How naive I was. Over the following weeks, I went to the apartment every day. I became the unpaid nanny, the cook, the maid. I arrived at 8 in the morning. I left at 8 at night. I took care of Valerie. I cleaned. I cooked. I did laundry. Amy spent the day in her bedroom watching television, talking on the phone, buying things online that they didn't need and couldn't afford. Tom came home late, always late, smelling of beer, cigarettes, and places I didn't want to imagine. One night, as I was putting Valerie to bed, I found a paper under the crib. It was a receipt. From the bank. A late payment notice. The mortgage on my house. They were 3 months behind on payments. 3 months. I put the paper in my purse. I didn't say anything, but I couldn't sleep that night. The next day, I arrived earlier. Amy was still sleeping. Tom was getting ready to leave. Son, we need to talk. Not now, Mum. I'm late for work. It's important. Later, Mum. Now, Tom. My voice came out louder than I intended. Valerie started to cry in her crib. Amy came out of the bedroom, her hair a mess. What's going on? Why are you shouting? I took the receipt out of my purse. I put it on the table. What is this? Tom didn't even look at it. It's a bank receipt, Mum. I know what it says. You're 3 months behind on the mortgage. 3 months. What's going to happen to my house? It's not your house, Mum. It's my house. You gave me the power, remember? I gave it to you so you would take care of it, not so you would lose it. Amy crossed her arms. She no longer looked vulnerable. She no longer looked tired. She looked furious. Oh, Mrs. Mary, always the same thing. Your house, your house. You know what? We're sick of it. Sick of your complaining. Sick of your judging. I'm not judging you. I just want to know what's going to happen. What's going to happen, Tom said, grabbing his keys, is that we're going to fix it, our way. And if you don't like it, well, I'm sorry, Mom, but it's my problem, not yours. How is it not my problem? It's my house. Not anymore, he shouted. It's not your house anymore. It's mine. And I'm going to do whatever I please with it. He stormed out, slamming the door. The sound made Valerie cry harder. Amy looked at me with those cold eyes I knew so well. If you want to keep seeing your granddaughter, mother-in-law, I suggest you shut up and do as we say, because if you bother us too much, you won't set foot in this house again. Got it? I nodded, tears in my eyes, heartbroken. But I nodded, because Valerie was the only thing I had left, the only reason it was worth getting up every morning. And Amy knew it. That afternoon, while Valerie slept in my arms, I dialed a number I had saved for years. It was the number for Mr. David Williams, the lawyer who had handled Robert's will when he died. A good, honest man, the kind that isn't common anymore. He answered on the third ring. Hello, Mr. Williams. This is Mary Johnson. Mrs. Mary, so good to hear from you. How are you? Bad, counselor. Very bad. And I need your help. I told him everything. The power of attorney, the mortgage, the threats, the fear. He listened in silence. When I finished, he sighed. Mrs. Mary, this is serious, very serious. Your son is committing financial abuse, and you have the right to defend yourself. But he's my son, counselor. I don't want to get him in trouble. I understand. but you also cannot allow them to strip you of what is yours. What do you want to do? I don't know. I just know I'm afraid. Afraid of losing my granddaughter. Afraid of losing my house. Afraid of everything. Listen to me carefully, Mrs. Mary. I am going to help you, but you have to promise me something. What? That you will stop being afraid, because fear is what they use to control you, and as long as you're afraid, they will continue to abuse you. His words went through me like an arrow. And what should I do, counselor? For now, nothing. Continue your normal life. Keep seeing your granddaughter. But I'm going to investigate. I'm going to review the documents. And when I have everything ready, we will act. Act how? You'll see, Mrs. Mary. You'll see. I hung up the phone with my heart racing. I didn't know if I had done the right thing. I didn't know what was going to happen. But for the first time in months, I felt something close to hope. The following weeks were strange. I kept going to the apartment every day. I kept caring for Valerie. I kept cooking and cleaning. But there was something different about me. A quiet strength. A silent decision. I wasn't going to let them walk all over me anymore. Never again. One afternoon, while I was changing Valerie's diaper, I found another paper. This time it wasn't a receipt. It was a brochure from a real estate agency. We sell your property. In 30 days, no complications, best market price. Someone had circled the words, "We sell," in red. I felt the ground open beneath my feet. They were going to sell my house. They were going to sell it. And I had no way to stop it. That night, when I arrived home, everything looked different. As if it no longer belonged to me. As if the walls knew they would soon have other owners. I sat at the kitchen table, in the same place where I had shared breakfast with Tom so many times, where Robert had told me he loved me, where I had planned my whole life. And for the first time, I allowed rage to enter. Not just sadness, not just pain. Rage. Rage against Tom for betraying me, against Amy for manipulating him, against myself for having been so blind. But above all, rage against the silence, against all those years of keeping quiet, of enduring, of saying yes when I wanted to say no, no more. I picked up my phone. I dialed Mr. Williams' number. "Counselor, it's Mary." "Mrs. Mary, what happened?" "They're going to sell my house." Silence. "Then we don't have time to lose. Come to my office first thing tomorrow morning. We are going to prepare a strategy." "What kind of strategy?" "The kind your son won't expect." I hung up. I stared at the phone, and I smiled. For the first time in months, I smiled. Because I finally understood something. I wasn't going to get my life back by begging. I wasn't going to get my dignity back by pleading. I was going to get them back by fighting. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the living room armchair with the lights off, watching the shadows, the streetlights cast on the walls. I thought about all the decisions that had led me here, about every time I said yes when I should have said no, about every limit I didn't set, about every sign I ignored. Robert had warned me. From his hospital bed, with his heart failing, he had told me, "Don't spoil him too much." And I didn't listen, because I believed that a mother's love was infinite, that it had no conditions, that I should give everything without expecting anything in return. But I was wrong. Love without limits is not love. It is self-destruction. When morning came, I prepared as if I were going to war. I took a shower. I put on the navy blue dress I had worn to Tom's wedding. I put on makeup for the first time in months. I did my hair. I looked in the mirror and recognized the woman I had been before I got lost in the role of the self-sacrificing mother. Mary Johnson, retired teacher, widow, owner of a house she had paid for with 40 years of work, and no one was going to take it from me without a fight. I arrived at Mr. Williams' office at 9 o'clock in the morning. His office was in an old downtown building with tiled floors and wooden stairs that creaked with every step. The secretary showed me in immediately. Mr. Williams was a man about 60 years old, with completely white hair and thick glasses that gave him the look of a wise owl. He greeted me with a kind smile and offered me coffee. "Mrs. Mary, please sit down. Tell me everything calmly." I told him. Everything. From the beginning. The wedding, the debts, the power of attorney, the mortgage, the late payments, the real estate agency brochure. He listened, taking notes in a yellow notepad. When I finished, he took off his glasses and rubbed his eyes. "Mrs. Mary, your case is complex, but it's not impossible. The first thing we need to do is revoke that power of attorney." "Can that be done?" "Yes. You granted it. You can revoke it. But you have to do it before a public notary, and your son will be notified immediately." "And if he gets angry? What if he doesn't let me see my granddaughter?" Mr. Williams looked at me with those eyes that had seen too many family tragedies. "That is the question all grandmothers in your situation ask me, and the answer is always the same. If you don't defend yourself now, you will lose everything, the house, your dignity, and eventually the granddaughter too. Because when your son sells the house and spends the money, who do you think he's going to come to ask for more?" He was right. What do I have to do? First, we are going to make copies of all the documents, the power of attorney, the deed to the house, the late payment receipts, everything you have. Then we'll go before the notary to revoke the power. And finally, we will file a complaint for financial abuse and attempted dispossession. A complaint? Against my son? Yes, Mrs. Mary, against your son, because what he is doing is a crime, and you have the right to defend yourself. Tears started to burn my eyes. "Counselor, I don't want to get him in trouble. I just want to get my house back, to be able to live my final years in peace." "I know, and that's why we're going to try the peaceful route first. We're going to notify him that the power has been revoked, and we're going to give him the opportunity to hand over the house without problems. If he agrees, there won't be a complaint. If he doesn't agree, then what? Then we go to court, and a judge will decide." I took a deep breath, thought about Tom, the boy he had been, the man he had become, and I made the hardest decision of my life. "All right, counselor, let's do it." We spent the next 2 hours gathering documents, copies, signatures, and declarations. At 12 o'clock, we went to the notary's office, the same notary's office where I had signed the power of attorney months ago. The notary recognized me. "Mrs. Johnson, how can I help you?" "I've come to revoke the power of attorney I granted to my son." The notary looked at Mr. Williams, then looked at me. "Are you sure? This is a serious legal act. Once you revoke it, your son will no longer be able to act on your behalf." "I'm sure." "And you do this of your own free will, without any pressure?" I looked at Mr. Williams. He nodded slowly. "I do it of my own free will, and this time it's true." I signed where they told me. Once, twice, 3 times. The notary stamped the documents. "Done. The power has been revoked. Your son will be notified within the next 24 hours. We left the notary's office. The midday sun burned my face, but for the first time in months, I felt something like freedom. "And what happens now?" I asked. "Now we wait. Your son will receive an official notification. He can respond in 2 ways: accept it and hand over the house without problems, or refuse and force us to go to court." "Which do you think he'll choose?" Mr. Williams. Mr. Williams didn't answer, but his silence told me everything I needed to know. I didn't go to the apartment that afternoon. For the first time in weeks, I didn't go to take care of Valerie. I stayed home. I made chamomile tea. I sat in the armchair and waited. The phone rang at 6 o'clock in the afternoon. It was Tom. "Mum, why didn't you come today?" "I was busy, son." "Busy? With what? You never do anything." His tone was irritated, impatient. "With my own things, Tom. I have the right to have my own things." Silence. Then I heard Amy's voice in the background. "Ask her if she can come tomorrow morning. I have to go to the salon." "Mum, can you come tomorrow at 8 o'clock? Amy has things to do." "I can't, son." "What do you mean you can't? You always come. Don't be like that, Mum. You're leaving us hanging." Something inside me broke, but not from sadness, from rage. "I'm leaving you hanging? Seriously, Tom? That's what you're going to say to me? What's wrong with you? Why are you acting like this?" "Because I'm tired, son. Tired of you using me. Tired of you only looking for me when you need something." "Oh, Mum, don't be dramatic." "I'm not dramatic. I'm realistic. And the reality is that I'm not coming tomorrow, or the day after, or ever again, until you and I have a serious conversation about everything that's happening." "Conversation about what?" "About the mortgage, about the late payments, about your plans to sell my house." Silence. A long, heavy silence. "Who told you that?" "I found the real estate agency brochure, Tom, under Valerie's crib." "Mum, I can explain." "I don't want explanations. I want solutions. Or rather, I want my house back." "You can't do that. The power of attorney no longer exists. I revoked it this morning." The silence that followed was deafening. "You did what?" "I revoked the power of attorney. You can no longer act on my behalf. You can't sell my house anymore. You can't do anything without my permission." "You can't do that." "I already did, and you'll receive an official notification in the next few hours." I heard a crash, as if Tom had thrown something against the wall. "Do you know what you just did, Mum? Do you know what this means?" "It means I regained control of my life. It means you screwed us over. That's what it means, because now we won't be able to pay the mortgage, and the bank is going to take the house, and we'll be out on the street. Is that what you want?" "What I want is for you to stop blaming me for your decisions, Tom. You took out that mortgage. You stopped paying. You decided to spend the money on things you didn't need. That's not my fault. You're my mother. You're supposed to help me. I've helped you your whole life, son. But not anymore. Not this way. Then don't ever see your granddaughter again, because if you don't help us, you don't have the right to be part of her life." His words cut through me like knives. "Are you threatening me with my own granddaughter?" "It's not a threat. It's the truth. If you're not with us, you're against us, and we protect Valerie from people who hurt us." Tom hung up. I was left with the phone in my hand, trembling. It had happened. The thing I feared most. The thing I had tried to avoid for months. They had taken Valerie away from me. I cried that night. I cried harder than I had cried since Robert's death. I cried for everything I had lost, for everything I would never get back. But when I stopped crying, when I had no more tears left, I washed my face. I looked in the mirror and realized something. For the first time in a long time, the woman looking back at me from the mirror had dignity. I had lost my son. I had lost my granddaughter. I would probably lose my house, but I hadn't lost my soul. And that was the only thing that mattered. The next day, the doorbell rang at 10 o'clock in the morning. It was Mr. Williams. But he wasn't alone. He came with a police officer. "Mrs. Mary, may we come in?" "Of course, counsellor. Did something happen?" They entered the living room. The police officer stood by the door. The counsellor sat across from me. "Your son received the notification 2 hours ago, and he responded." "What did he say?" "He said he doesn't plan to hand over the house, that the power of attorney was valid, and that everything he did under that power is also valid, and that he's going to sue you for revoking it without his consent." I felt the floor moving. Can he do that? He can try, but he won't win. The problem, Mrs. Mary, is something else. What? The counsellor exchanged a look with the police officer. "Your son contacted me an hour ago. He threatened to come to the house to force you to sign a new power of attorney. He said he wouldn't allow you to destroy him." "Force me how?" "He didn't specify. That's why we brought Officer Miller, to ensure your safety." "My safety? From my own son?" The counsellor looked at me with those sad eyes that had seen everything. "Mrs. Mary, when money is involved, people do things they never imagined they would do, even family, especially family." I remained silent, thinking about Tom, the boy he had been, the man he had become. Was he really capable of hurting me? I didn't want to believe it, but deep down I already knew. The answer was yes. 3 days passed, 3 days in which I didn't leave the house, in which every noise made me jump, in which I slept with the lights on and the phone in my hand. Mr. Williams called me twice a day to check how I was. He told me they had filed the complaint for financial abuse, that the process would take time, that I needed to be patient. But I no longer had patience. I only had fear. And on the 4th day, when I was in the kitchen making coffee, I heard someone open the front door. They didn't knock. They simply walked in, with a key. Tom still had a key to my house. I felt my heart stop. I heard his footsteps in the living room, then Amy's voice. "Where is she? She must be in the kitchen." I froze, the cup of coffee shaking in my hand. And then Tom appeared. But he wasn't the tired, apologetic Tom who had come asking for help months ago. He was a different man, with hard eyes, a clenched jaw, and his hands closed into fists. "Mum, we need to talk." "Tom, what are you doing here?" "I came to fix this, once and for all." Amy appeared behind him, carrying Valerie in her arms. My granddaughter looked at me with those enormous eyes, and I felt like I was dying. "Why did you bring the baby?" I asked. "Because I want you to understand what's at stake, Mum. This isn't just about us. It's about her, your granddaughter. Or don't you care about her anymore?" "Of course I care, but—" "Then sign this." He took some papers out of his jacket pocket. He threw them onto the kitchen table. I recognized the format. It was a power of attorney. Again. "I will not sign that, Tom." "Yes, you will sign it." "No." Tom took a step toward me. His face was inches from mine. "Listen to me carefully, Mum. Either you sign this right now, or you never see Valerie again. Do you understand me? Never." Tears started to roll down my cheeks. "Don't do this to me, son. Please." "You did it to me first. You revoked the power. You filed a complaint. You betrayed me." "I didn't betray you. I just defended myself." "It's the same thing." "No, Tom. It's not the same thing." Amy came closer. She put Valerie in front of my face. The baby reached out her little hands toward me. "Look, mother-in-law. Look at what you're losing. Your granddaughter, your family, everything. Is it worth it? Is an old house worth this?" My hands were shaking. My heart was beating so hard I thought it would burst. And then Tom did something I never imagined. He took off his belt. The black leather slid through his pant loops with that sound I will never forget. A menacing whisper that filled the entire kitchen. Tom wrapped the belt around his right hand. His knuckles turned white. "Mum, for the last time, are you going to sign or not?" My voice came out as a thread. "No, Tom, I will not sign." Amy stepped back, moving away with Valerie in her arms. But she didn't leave. She stayed there, watching, waiting. "Then you're forcing me to do this," Tom said. He raised the belt, and I closed my eyes. I still wonder if I did the right thing. And you? What would you have done in my place? But the blow never came. Instead, I heard the doorbell. Ding-dong. The sound echoed throughout the house like an explosion. Tom froze, the belt hanging in the air. Amy stopped breathing. "Who is it?" she whispered. "I don't know," I replied, my voice broken. They rang again, this time louder, more insistent. Ding-dong. Ding-dong. "Don't open it," Tom ordered me. But I was already walking toward the door, my legs trembling, my heart about to burst out of my chest. "Mum, I told you not to open it." I ignored him. I reached the door. I put my hand on the doorknob, took a deep breath, and opened it. Amy started screaming. Standing at the door was Mr. Williams, dressed in his impeccable grey suit, his leather briefcase in hand, and beside him, Officer Miller, in his blue uniform, his badge shining under the afternoon sun. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Mary," the counsellor said in a calm voice. "Is everything all right?" I couldn't answer. Tears started to roll down my cheeks uncontrollably. Officer Miller looked toward the inside of the house. I saw how his eyes landed on Tom, on the belt he was still holding in his hand. "Sir, can you please drop that?" he said in a firm but calm voice. Tom dropped the belt to the floor. The leather hit the hardwood with a sound that went right through me. "This is a misunderstanding," Amy began to say. "We were just coming to talk to my mother-in-law." "Talk?" Mr. Williams interrupted. "With a belt?" Amy turned pale. Valerie started crying in her arms. Officer Miller walked into the house. He walked slowly, his hands near his belt, where he kept his radio and his weapon. "Mrs. Johnson, are you all right? Have they hurt you?" "No, officer, they haven't. They haven't touched me." "But were they going to?" I looked at Tom, my son, my only son, the boy who had grown up in this house, the man who had just threatened me with a belt. "Yes," I whispered. "I think so." Tom shook his head. "No, Mum, I would never. I just wanted to scare you. So you would understand, so you would sign." "Sign what?" the counsellor asked. Amy tried to hide the papers that were on the table, but Officer Miller was faster. He took them. He read them. "It's a power of attorney," he said, "with broad and sufficient powers to sell, mortgage, and dispose of all of Mrs. Johnson's assets." Mr. Williams walked over to the table, held out his hand, and the officer gave him the papers. He examined them carefully. "This is coercion, Tom. It's a felony. You were attempting to force your mother to sign a legal document under threat of violence." "I wasn't going to hit her," Tom insisted. "I just wanted her to understand." "Understand what?" I asked, my voice broken. "That if I don't give you everything I have, you're going to hit me. Is that what you wanted me to understand?" "Mum, you don't understand. We're desperate. The bank is going to take the house. We're going to be out on the street. And that's my fault, is it? Is it my fault that you took out a mortgage you couldn't pay? Is it my fault that Amy spent all the money? Is it my fault that you live beyond your means? You taught us to dream, Tom shouted. You told us we could have everything we wanted if we worked hard. I taught you to work, son, not to steal. And this is stealing, stealing from your own mother. Tom collapsed into a chair. He covered his face with his hands. And for the first time in a long time, I saw him cry. I don't know what to do, Mum. I don't know what to do anymore. Something inside me softened, that motherly instinct that never dies, that always wants to protect, that always wants to comfort. I almost went over to him. I almost hugged him. But then I remembered the belt. I remembered the threats. I remembered all the months of manipulation and lies, and I stayed where I was. What you have to do, Tom, is face the consequences of your decisions. Like an adult, Mr. Williams cleared his throat. Mr. Mendoza, Mrs. Garcia, you have two options. You can leave right now, without making any more of a scene, and resolve this civilly in court. Or Officer Miller can arrest you for trespassing, coercion, and attempted fraud. You decide. Amy was the first to move. She walked toward the door with Valerie in her arms. She passed by me without looking. Tom stood up slowly. He looked defeated, aged, as if he had lost 10 years of his life in one afternoon. Go, Tom. Please, just go. You're kicking me out of the house where I grew up. I'm asking you to leave the house that is mine, that has always been mine, and that you tried to take from me. He walked toward the door, but before leaving, he turned. This isn't over, Mum. I promise you, it's not over. That's a threat, Mr. Mendoza, Officer Miller said, in front of 2 witnesses. I suggest you leave before this gets worse. Tom left. The door closed behind him, and I fell apart. Mr. Williams helped me sit on the sofa. Officer Miller brought me a glass of water from the kitchen. I drank it with trembling hands. How did you know they were here? I asked when I could speak. Mr. Williams smiled, a sad but proud smile. We didn't know, but when your son called me 3 days ago threatening to come, we decided to take precautions. We've been watching the house. When we saw them enter, we decided to act. You've been watching my house for 3 days. Day and night, Mrs. Mary, because we knew your son wouldn't stay still. And we were right. Thank you, Counselor. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't arrived. I prefer not to think about it, he said, putting the power of attorney papers into his briefcase. These documents are evidence. We'll add them to the complaint. This strengthens our case considerably. Officer Miller took photographs of the scene, the belt on the floor, the papers on the table, everything. Mrs. Johnson, I recommend you change the locks on your house, he said. Your son has a key, and after what happened today, it's not safe for him to be able to enter whenever he wants. I nodded. I hadn't thought of that. We should also consider a restraining order, Mr. Williams added, so your son cannot come within 100 yards of you or this property. A restraining order? Against my own son? It's for your safety, Mrs. Mary. What happened today was serious, very serious. Your son crossed a line, and we don't know if he's willing to cross another. I looked at the belt still lying on the kitchen floor, the symbol of everything that had broken between us. All right, I said. Do whatever you have to do. That night, after the counselor and the officer left, Carol came to stay with me. She arrived with a small suitcase and a bag of donuts. I'm not leaving you alone, Mary. Not tonight or the next few days. I didn't protest. The truth is, I was afraid to be alone, afraid Tom would come back, afraid of my own thoughts. We sat in the living room, each with a cup of soothing herbal tea. "How do you feel?" Carol asked. "I don't know. Empty, broken, but also relieved." "Relieved?" "Because I no longer have to pretend everything is fine, because I no longer have to pretend that my son isn't hurting me, because I finally set a limit." Carol squeezed my hand. "I'm proud of you, honey. I know how hard it was. I know how much it cost you." "It cost me everything, Carol. My son, my granddaughter, my family." "You didn't lose your family, Mary. You discovered that you never had it, not the way you thought you did. And that hurts. God knows it hurts. But it's better to know the truth than to live in a lie." She was right, as always. That night, I slept in my bed for the first time in weeks, without taking sleeping pills, without waking up startled every hour. I slept soundly, the way you sleep when you finally let go of a burden that wasn't yours to carry. The next morning, the locksmith arrived at 8 o'clock. He changed all the locks, the front door, the back door, the garage door. He gave me 3 sets of new keys. "One for you, one spare, and one just in case," he said. I gave one to Carol and kept the other 2. For the first time in my life, my house had locks my son couldn't open, and I didn't know whether to feel safe or devastated. The following days were strange, silent. The house felt too big, too empty. I expected Tom to call, to come, to knock on the door begging for forgiveness. He didn't. The judge had granted the temporary restraining order. Tom was prohibited from coming near me or the house. "And the mortgage?" I asked. "What's going to happen with that?" "We're working on it. We're going to prove that your son took out that mortgage fraudulently using a power you granted under emotional coercion. It won't be easy, but we have a good case." "And if the bank keeps the house anyway?" The counselor sighed. "Then we'll fight the bank too. But let's take it one step at a time, Mrs. Mary. One step at a time." 2 weeks later, I received a letter. It came in a white envelope with no return address. I opened it with trembling hands. It was from Tom. "Mum, I don't know if you'll read this. I don't know if you care what I have to say, but I need to write it. I'm sorry for everything that happened. I'm sorry for scaring you. I'm sorry for going that far. I never meant to hurt you. I was just desperate. Amy and I are separating. She's going to go live with her mum. She's taking Valerie. I don't know when I'll see my daughter again. I lost my job. I lost my wife. I'm about to lose the house I mortgaged. And the worst thing of all is that I lost my mum. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I know I don't deserve it. I just want you to know that I regret it. Everything. And I wish I could go back in time and do things differently. But I can't. So I'll just say this. Thank you for everything you did for me, for raising me, for giving me a family, for loving me even when I didn't know how to love you back. And forgive me. Forgive me for everything. Tom." I read the letter 3 times, each time with more tears in my eyes. It was a confession, an apology, a goodbye. But it wasn't enough, because words don't bring back what was lost. They don't fix what was broken. They don't heal what was wounded. I put the letter in a drawer, along with the photographs of Tom as a child, along with the memories of a son who no longer existed. And I kept moving forward. The trial took place 3 months later. It was in a small courtroom in the civil courthouse, with a judge who looked tired, and a secretary who typed everything that was said. Tom was there, alone, without a lawyer. He was representing himself because he no longer had money to pay for one. He looked bad, thin, tired, broken. I almost got up to hug him. Almost. The judge listened to both sides. Mr. William, Mr. Williams presented all the evidence: the power of attorney, the mortgage receipts, the photographs from the day of the belt, the testimonies. Tom only repeated over and over, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." The judge delivered the verdict a week later. The mortgage was annulled because it had been fraudulently obtained. The bank would have to bear the loss. My house was entirely back in my name. No debts, no mortgages, free. Tom was ordered to pay a fine he could never afford, and to maintain the restraining order for 2 years. I won. But it felt like a defeat, because I had won my house. But I had lost my son, and no house, no matter how beloved, is worth as much as a child, even if that child tried to destroy you. The months after the trial were the quietest of my life. Not the quiet of peace, the quiet of absence. Like when someone dies and the house is filled with that emptiness that nothing can fill. Every day I woke up expecting to hear the phone, a call from Tom, a text message, anything, but nothing came. The house was officially back in my name. Mr. Williams had handed me all the papers in order. The clean deed, no mortgages, no liens, completely mine. I should have felt relief, joy, victory, but all I felt was a hollow space in my chest that grew a little bigger every day. One afternoon in November, 2 months after the trial, Carol came to visit me. She arrived with baked goods and hot cider, as she always did when she knew I was sad. We sat at the kitchen table, that table that had seen so many conversations, so many meals, so many tears. "Have you heard anything from him?" Carol asked, although she already knew the answer. "Nothing. Absolutely nothing." "And about the baby?" I shook my head. The tears began to burn my eyes before I could stop them. Sometimes I wake up early and I think about her, about Valerie. I wonder how she is, if she's talking yet, if she's walking yet, if she remembers me. She's too young to remember, Mary. I know, and that's what hurts the most, that I'm going to be the grandmother she never knew, the grandmother who exists only in old photographs and in stories they may never tell her. Carol squeezed my hand on the table. "You did the right thing, okay?" "Because it doesn't feel like the right thing. It feels like I destroyed my own family." "You didn't destroy it, honey. It was already destroyed. You just stopped pretending it wasn't." She was right, as always, but that didn't make it hurt any less. That same week, I received an unexpected call. It was a woman's voice, young, nervous. "Mrs. Mary?" "Yes, who is this?" "I'm Carla, Amy's cousin. We met at Tom's wedding." I vaguely remembered a tall girl with glasses who had been sitting at a table in the back. She had been one of the few people who had spoken to me that night. "Yes, I remember you. What happened?" "I wanted to tell you something. About Tom and Amy." My heart started beating faster. "What happened? Are they okay? Is the baby okay?" "The baby is fine. She's with Amy at my aunt's house. But, Mrs. Mary, you need to know something." "Tell me." Carla sighed. I could feel her discomfort through the phone. "Amy is planning to move to the United States. She has a sister in Texas. She wants to take Valerie. For good." I felt the ground disappear beneath my feet. "When?" "In 2 weeks. She already bought the tickets. She's arranged everything." "And Tom?" "Tom doesn't know anything. Amy says he has no right to an opinion, that he's a loser and Valerie deserves better." "And why are you telling me this?" Silence. Then, in a broken voice, "Because I saw how Amy treated you, Mom. Your family, you. And it wasn't right. And now she's doing the same thing to Tom. She's taking his daughter without him knowing. And I can't stay quiet. It's not fair. Does Tom know you're calling me? No. No one knows. And I ask you not to say it was me who told you. But I thought you should know. For Valerie. Because that baby deserves to have her family. All of her family. We hung up. I was left with the phone in my hand, trembling. Amy was going to take my granddaughter to another country, and Tom had no idea. I could stay quiet. I could let things take their course. I could say it wasn't my problem, that Tom deserved it for everything he had done to me. But it wasn't about Tom. It was about Valerie, my granddaughter, an innocent child who was not to blame for any of this. And in that moment, I made the hardest decision of my life. I was going to help my son, not because he deserved it, but because it was the right thing to do. I called Mr. Williams that same afternoon. "Counselor, I need your help. Again." I told him everything. Carla's call, Amy's plans, the tickets to the United States. "This is serious, Mrs. Mary. If Amy takes the child without the father's consent, she would be committing parental kidnapping. It's a federal crime. What can be done?" Tom would have to request a precautionary measure, a prohibition so Amy cannot take the child out of the country. But for that, he needs to appear before a judge, and he needs a lawyer. "Could you help him?" The counselor fell silent. "Mrs. Mary, after everything that young man did to you, are you sure you want to help him?" "I'm not doing it for him, counselor. I'm doing it for my granddaughter. And because if I don't do anything and Amy takes her away, I'll never forgive myself." "I understand. But there's something you need to know." "What?" "If I represent Tom in this case, you would have to pay my fees, because he doesn't have any money. Are you willing to do that?" I thought about the savings I had left, about the pension that barely covered my expenses, about everything Tom had already taken from me. And I thought about Valerie, her dark eyes, her baby smile, the possibility of never seeing her again. "Yes, counselor," I said. "I am willing." The next step was the hardest. I had to talk to Tom. I hadn't seen him since the day of the trial. We hadn't spoken since the letter he sent me months ago. The restraining order was still in effect. He couldn't come near me, but I could go find him. I got his address through Mr. Williams. He was living in a small apartment in a neighborhood on the other side of Los Angeles, a place I had never visited. I went on a Saturday afternoon. Carol insisted on accompanying me. "You're not going alone, Mary, not after everything that happened." I didn't argue. The building was old, with peeling paint and stairs that smelled musty. We climbed to the third floor. We knocked on the door of apartment 308. No one answered. We knocked again. Finally, we heard footsteps. The door opened, and there was Tom. But he wasn't the Tom with the belt. He wasn't the Tom from the trial. He was another version of himself, thinner, greyer, older. He was wearing an old t-shirt and pajama pants. He hadn't shaved in days. His eyes were sunken, red. When he saw me, he froze. "Mom." "Hi, son." We stared at each other for what seemed like an eternity. Two strangers who were once family. "What are you doing here?" he finally asked. "We need to talk. May I come in?" He looked at Carol, then at me. He hesitated. "Yes, of course. Come in." The apartment was tiny. A living room that was also the dining room, a narrow kitchenette. A door that led to what I assumed was the bedroom. There was no furniture, just a mattress on the floor, a plastic table, 2 folding chairs. "Sorry for the mess," Tom said, quickly picking up some empty beer cans. I wasn't expecting visitors. We sat in the folding chairs. Tom remained standing, leaning against the wall, with his arms crossed. "How did you find me?" he asked. "It doesn't matter how. What matters is why I'm here." "Why?" "Because I need to tell you something. About Amy and about Valerie." I saw his body tense up. "What's wrong with them? Are they okay?" "They're fine, but they won't be for long if you don't do something." I told him everything. Carla's call, the plans to go to the United States, the purchased tickets, the departure date. With every word I said, I saw Tom crumble. He slid down the wall until he was sitting on the floor. He covered his face with his hands. "She can't do that," he whispered. "She can't take my daughter away from me." "She can, and she will, unless you act now." "How? I don't have money. I don't have a lawyer. I don't have anything." "I have a lawyer, and he's willing to help you." Tom lifted his head. He looked at me with those eyes that were once a child's. "Why? Why would you help me after everything I did to you?" I took a deep breath. I searched for the right words, the words that were true. "I'm not doing it for you, Tom. I'm doing it for Valerie, because she deserves to know her family. She deserves to grow up close to her dad. And because if I don't do anything and you lose her, I will never forgive myself. Not because you're my son, but because she is my granddaughter. And the mistakes you made shouldn't cost her her future." Tom started to cry soundlessly, just tears rolling down his face and falling onto the dirty floor of the apartment. "I'm sorry, Mum. I am so sorry." "I know, son. I know. I don't know how to fix this. I don't know how to fix myself." "One step at a time. First, we'll fight for Valerie. Then, we'll see what comes next." Carol, who had remained silent the entire time, spoke for the first time. "Young man, your mother is doing something very few people would do. She is putting you above her own pain. Don't let her down again. Do you hear me? Don't let her down." Tom nodded. He wiped his face with the back of his hand. "I won't. I promise, Mum. This time, I won't." I didn't answer, because Tom's promises no longer meant anything to me, only actions, only what he did from now on. Mr. Williams filed the request for the precautionary measure the next day, Monday morning, with documents, evidence, and testimonies. On Tuesday, a family judge granted a temporary order prohibiting Amy from taking the minor out of the country until the custody situation was resolved. On Wednesday, when Amy tried to board the flight to Texas with Valerie in her arms, immigration agents stopped her at the airport. Carla called me that same afternoon. "You did it, Mrs. Mary. Amy is furious. She says you and Tom ruined her life." "But Valerie didn't leave. She's staying here." I hung up the phone and cried, not out of sadness, but out of relief. My granddaughter wasn't going to grow up in another country. She wasn't going to be lost forever. There was still a possibility. 3 days later, Tom came to visit me. He knocked on the door. He didn't walk in without permission like before. He waited for me to open it. "Hello, Mum." "Hello, son. Can I come in?" I hesitated. Part of me was still afraid. I still remembered the belt. I still felt the betrayal. But another part of me saw the man in front of me, not the one who had threatened me, but the one who had just lost everything and was trying to rebuild himself. "Come in." We went into the living room. We sat in the same places where we had talked so many times when he was a child, when I believed that nothing bad could happen. "Thank you, Mum, for what you did." "I already told you I didn't do it for you." "I know. But still, Thank you, because you could have stayed quiet. You could have let Amy take her, and no one would have blamed you. I would have blamed myself. That makes you a better person than me. I didn't deny it, because it was true. What happens now? I asked. We're going to fight for custody. Mr. Williams says I have a good chance. Amy has a history of irresponsible spending. She tried to run away with the child. And well, I'm trying to get my act together. How? I got a job at a warehouse. It's not much, but it's honest. I'm going to therapy, one that the state offers for free. And I'm trying to be the man Dad wanted me to be. His words hit me deep, because for the first time in years, they sounded sincere, not manipulative, not desperate, sincere. I'm glad, son. I know I can't ask you to forgive me. I know what I did is unforgivable. But I want you to know that I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of what you did for me, of what you always did for me. Don't do it for me, Tom. Do it for yourself, and for Valerie. He nodded. He stood up to leave. At the door, he turned one last time. Do you think someday we can be a family again? I thought about that question, about everything it implied, about everything that had been broken, about everything that maybe, just maybe, could be repaired with time and effort. I don't know, son, but I know the path begins with the truth, and the truth is that you hurt me, a lot, and that's not forgotten overnight. I understand, but I also know that you are my son, and a part of me will always love you, even if it hurts, even if it's complicated, even if we never go back to being what we were. That's more than I deserve. Probably, but that's a mother's love. It's not always fair. It's just real. He left, and I was left in the living room, looking at the closed door, wondering if I had done the right thing. The answer didn't come that night, or the next, or the one after that. But with time, I started to understand something. Doing the right thing doesn't mean it hurts less. It means you can live with yourself afterward. And that, at the end of the day, was the only thing that really mattered. Time is a strange thing. Sometimes it goes too fast, sometimes too slow, and sometimes it just passes, doing its silent work of revealing who we truly are. A year passed. A year since the day of the belt, a year since the trial, a year since my life split in two, the before and the after. In that year, I learned something no one teaches you when you're young, that life always collects its debts. Not in the way we expect, not with the drama we imagine, but silently, inevitably, like water that slowly wears away stone. I heard about Amy through Carla, who continued to call me occasionally to tell me things, not for gossip, but because, according to her, someone had to know the truth. After she was prevented from leaving for the United States, Amy stayed living with her mum, in that big house in a fancy neighborhood where she had always boasted she grew up with every comfort. But the comforts quickly ran out. Amy's mum, Mrs. Patricia, turned out to be very different from what Amy had told everyone. She wasn't the rich, generous woman Amy painted. She was a bitter, controlling woman who threw every dollar she spent in her face, every plate of food she ate, every bit of space she occupied in the house. My aunt keeps her on a short leash, Carla told me in one of our calls. She sets her hours, makes her clean, yells at her in front of Valerie. It's as if she wants to collect for all the years Amy acted like a princess. And what does Amy say? Nothing. What can she say? She doesn't have a job. She doesn't have money. She has nowhere to go. She's trapped. The same word Amy used to describe how she felt about me when she was pretending to be nice. Now she was the one who was trapped. Life has a way of returning things. One Saturday afternoon, 6 months after all the airport scandal, I ran into Amy at the grocery store. I didn't recognize her at first. She was in the discount aisle, comparing prices of generic detergents, with Valerie in a well-used stroller. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, no makeup, wearing an old sweatshirt and worn-out jeans. She no longer had long, painted nails. They were short, unpainted, with damaged cuticles. She looked tired, old, even though she was only 30 years old. When our eyes met, I saw something in her eyes. Not hatred, not rage, something worse. Shame. She quickly looked away, grabbed the cheapest detergent without even looking at it, and pushed the cart in the opposite direction. But Valerie saw me, and even though she didn't know who I was, she reached out her little hands toward me. "Hi," she said, with that baby voice that breaks your heart. Amy stopped, frozen. I approached slowly, without threatening, without judging. "Hello, Valerie," I whispered. "Hello, my love." The baby smiled. She had 2 new teeth, Robert's eyes, Tom's hair. "She's very beautiful," I told Amy. She didn't respond. She just looked at the floor. "How are you, Amy?" For a moment I thought she wouldn't answer, that she would just leave without saying anything. But then she spoke, in a voice so low I could barely hear her. "Bad, Mrs. Mary. I'm bad." I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to feel satisfied, wanted to tell her. This is what happens when you hurt people. This is what happens when you only think about yourself. But when I looked into her eyes, I only saw a broken woman, a woman who had staked everything on greed and had lost. "I'm sorry," I finally said. She looked up, surprised. "You're sorry after everything I did to you? You're sorry?" "I'm sorry you're suffering, because no one deserves to suffer, not even you." Tears started to roll down her face, without sobs, without drama, just silent tears, from someone who finally understands that their decisions have consequences. I didn't appreciate what I had. Tom, the house, a family that accepted me. I wanted everything, and now I have nothing. You have Valerie. Not even that. Tom is fighting for custody and he's going to win. I know it, because I'm a mess, and he's changing, truly. And you? Are you changing? She shrugged. I don't know. Maybe. Or maybe I'm just getting what I deserve. No one deserves to be unhappy, Amy, but we all deserve the consequences of our decisions. And that's what's happening now. Life is collecting what you owed it. She nodded. She wiped her face with the sleeve of her sweatshirt. Will you ever forgive me? I thought about it. Honestly thought about it. I don't know, but I know that forgiveness is not asked for. It's earned. And that takes time. A lot of time. I understand. Valerie started crying. Amy took her out of the cart and rocked her awkwardly, without practice, without patience. Like someone who never learned to be a mother because she always thought other people would do the work for her. Do you need help? I asked. Amy looked at me. In her eyes, pride was fighting with desperation. Desperation won. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I need help. Then learn to ask for it, without manipulating, without threatening, without using the baby as a bargaining chip. Learn to be honest, because that is the only way out of where you are. How? Start over, like everyone else. I walked away, leaving her there with her discount cart and her crying daughter, and the whole life she had built on lies crumbling around her. I didn't feel joy, but I didn't feel guilt either. I felt something deeper, truer. I felt peace, because I understood something in that moment. I didn't need her to suffer to feel good, but I also wasn't going to carry her suffering as if it were mine. Everyone had to live with the consequences of their own decisions, and that is the purest form of justice that exists. As for Tom, his story was different, slower, more complicated. He kept his word. He stayed working at the warehouse. It wasn't a glamorous job. He loaded boxes, counted inventory, cleaned floors. But it was honest, and the money he earned he used to pay off his debts. Little by little, dollar by dollar, he visited me once a month, never unannounced, always asking permission, knocking on the door, waiting. At first, our conversations were short, awkward, full of silences that weighed more than words. But with time, they became easier. Not like before, never like before, but more honest, more real. "How's therapy going?" I would ask him. "Good. Hard, but good. I'm learning things about myself I don't like, but I need to see." "Like what?" "Like how I always blamed others for my problems. Amy, my situation, you. But the truth is, Amities, I made the decisions. I took out the mortgage. I threatened with the belt. I destroyed our relationship. And I have to live with that." Those words, coming from him, meant more than any apology. "I'm glad you see that, son. Do you think you can ever forgive me?" "I have forgiven you, Tom. But that doesn't mean I forget, or that things go back to how they were. Forgiveness is so I can sleep in peace. It's not to turn back time." "I understand. The custody trial took place 8 months after the airport incident. I went to the hearing, not because Tom asked me to, but because I wanted to see with my own eyes what was going to happen to my granddaughter. The judge was a woman, about 50 years old, with glasses and a serious expression that gave nothing away. She listened to both sides. Tom, who presented evidence of his stable job, his therapy, his clean and tidy apartment that he had prepared to receive Valerie, and Amy, who arrived without a lawyer, crying, asking for another chance, promising she would change, that she would be a better mother, that she just needed time. The judge delivered the verdict a week later, joint custody, but with primary residence at Tom's house. Amy would have supervised visits until she demonstrated financial and emotional stability. Tom left the courthouse crying, from relief, from gratitude, from fear of all the responsibility that had just fallen on his shoulders. "You'll do great, son," I told him. "You'll make mistakes, all parents do, but you'll do it with love, and that's what matters." "Thank you, Mum, for everything." "Don't thank me yet. Show me with your actions." He nodded, and he kept his word. 6 months later, Tom moved to a bigger 2-bedroom apartment, one for him, one for Valerie. He decorated it with his own hands, painted the walls yellow, put up curtains with clouds, bought a second-hand crib and restored it, just as Robert had done with the bicycle so many years ago. He invited me to see the apartment before Valerie moved in. It was humble, simple, but it was full of something I hadn't seen in a long time: love. "What do you think, Mum?" "I think your father would be proud." Those words broke him. He collapsed onto the second-hand sofa he had bought and cried like he hadn't cried since he was a child. "I miss him so much, Mum. Every day. And every day I wish I could tell him I'm sorry, that he was right, that I should have listened to him." I sat down next to him. I put my hand on his. "He knows, my son. Wherever he is, he knows." "You think so?" "I'm sure of it." As for Amy, Life continued to collect its debts. Her mother finally got tired of supporting her and gave her an ultimatum: get a job or move out. Amy got a job at a coffee shop, doing what she had always despised, serving others. At first, she hated it. Carla told me she complained all the time, cried on her breaks, felt that life was unfair to her. But little by little, something changed. She started arriving early, doing her job without complaining, saving every dollar she earned. After a year, she had saved enough to rent a room, small, in a distant neighborhood, but hers. And with that room came something else: dignity. I saw her one more time, almost 2 years after our encounter at the grocery store, this time at the family court, during one of the supervised visits with Valerie. She looked different. Not like the Amy at the wedding, but not like the destroyed Amy at the grocery store either. She looked like someone who had finally understood that life owes you nothing, that everything you have to earn, and that honest work, even if it hurts, ultimately gives you something no shortcut can: self-respect. We didn't speak. We just looked at each other from afar. And in that look, there was something like understanding. We weren't friends, we never would be, but we were no longer enemies. We were two women who had been through the storm and had survived, each in her own way. And me, how was I? I was fine. Not perfect. Not without scars, but fine. My house was still mine, clear of debts, clear of mortgages, clear of people who wanted to take it from me. Tom visited me every 2 weeks, with Valerie. My granddaughter ran around the yard, chasing the butterflies that visited the lilac bush, that lilac bush that continued to bloom purple, bright, and loyal. The baby called me Grandma Mary, with that little voice that melted my heart. And when she hugged me, I felt that everything, absolutely everything that had happened, had been worth it. One Sunday, after lunch, Tom and I stayed at the kitchen table while Valerie napped on the living room sofa. "Mum, I want to ask you something." "Tell me, son." "Did you ever call me crazy when all of that was happening? Did you say I was crazy for not giving them what they asked for?" I thought about it. I remembered those dark days, those nights of fear. "No, son, I never called you crazy. But there were people who thought who thought I was crazy for defending myself, for setting limits, for not continuing to be the mother who sacrifices herself until she disappears." "And what do you think now?" "I think the only craziness is giving up your dignity for fear of being alone. Because in the end, if you give up who you are, you're alone anyway. Alone from yourself, and that is the worst loneliness of all." Tom nodded. He looked out the window toward the yard where Valerie had been playing. "I once thought you were unfair to me, that you took away what was mine. But now I understand that it was never mine. It was yours, and I tried to steal it from you. Not just the house, your peace, your dignity, your life. You understand it because you matured, son, because life taught you. Sometimes life is the best teacher, even if it's the hardest. Did you ever see how I ended up after everything that happened?" I smiled, a sad but honest smile. "I saw you, Tom. I saw you alone in that miserable apartment. I saw you without a job, without a wife, without money. I saw you hit rock bottom, and I didn't feel joy, but I didn't feel guilt either, because I understood something important." "What?" "That sometimes the greatest love you can give someone is letting them face the consequences of their actions, because only then can they grow. Only then can they change." Tom wiped a tear that rolled down his cheek. "Thank you for that, Mum. Thank you for not rescuing me. Because if you had, I would still be the same. And Valerie would have a dad who's no good. You're right. But I'll also tell you something. I saw that you got up. I saw that you changed. And that son, that fills me with pride. We fell silent. That comfortable silence that can only exist between people who have passed through the fire and come out the other side. Life always collects its debts, doesn't it, Mum? Always, son. Always, sir. Sometimes it takes time. Sometimes it seems like it will never arrive. But it always collects. And it collected years of silence from me, of enduring, of not defending myself. But it also collected from those who hurt me, not with my revenge, but with their own decisions. Karma, he said. Justice, I replied. Simply justice. Today is 3 years since that afternoon of the belt. 3 years since my life split in two. 3 years since I learned that sometimes defending your dignity costs everything you have, and that it is worth it. I am sitting on my front porch, in the same place where Robert used to sit to read the newspaper on Sunday mornings. The afternoon sun warms my face. The lilac bush is still blooming in the yard. Purple, bright, loyal. Valerie runs barefoot through the garden. She's 4 years old now, her long hair tied up in 2 pigtails, Robert's eyes, Tom's laugh when he was a child. Grandma Mary, look, a butterfly. How beautiful, my love. What colour is it? Yellow, like the sun. I smile, that smile that only grandmothers know, the one that hurts and heals at the same time, the one that carries all the weight of the world and all the lightness of hope. Tom is in the kitchen making iced tea. I can hear him moving things around, humming a song, how he has made this house his own again, but in a different way, respectful, humble. He has been coming every Sunday for 2 years with Valerie to eat, to talk, sometimes just to be in silence together. He is not the son I had. That son died the day of the belt. But he is the man that son could have been if life hadn't led him astray. And that man is learning to be better every day. He comes out to the porch with 2 glasses of iced tea, gives me one, and sits in the chair next to mine. Thank you, my son. You're welcome, Mum. We drink in silence, watching Valerie chase butterflies, watching the afternoon fall slowly over the yard, watching life continue its inevitable course. Mum, can I ask you something? Of course, son. Do you ever regret it? All of it. Confronting me, revoking the power, everything. I think about it. Honestly think about it, because that question deserves a true answer. I regret many things, Tom. I regret not setting limits sooner, giving you everything without teaching you the value of earning it, rescuing you every time you fell instead of letting you learn. But I don't regret defending myself, because defending myself was the only thing that saved me, and eventually it saved you too. How me? Because if I had given you the house, if I had signed that second power of attorney, if I had continued to be your lifesaver every time you sank, you would never have learned to swim, you would never have hit rock bottom, you would never have had to look in the mirror and ask yourself who you really were, and you would never have changed. Tom nods. He drinks his iced tea. He looks at his daughter. You were right about everything, and I was blinded by ambition, by Amy's lies, by my own immaturity. We all get blinded sometimes, son. The important thing is to open your eyes before it's too late. It was almost too late, but it wasn't, and that's what counts. Valerie runs toward us with her hands full of flowers she picked from the garden. For you, Grandma. They're pretty like you. I take the flowers, small, bruised by her little hands, but beautiful anyway. Thank you, my darling. They're the prettiest flowers I've ever received in my life. Prettier than your dad's. I look at Tom. He smiles. As pretty as your dad's when he was a little boy, and he used to bring me flowers from the neighbour's garden without permission. Valerie laughs, that crystal clear laugh only children have, and runs back to the garden. Did you tell her that story? Tom asks. Of course. Kids need to know that their parents were kids too. They made mistakes too. They learned Oljan too. Are you ever going to tell her what happened between us? I think about it. When she's older, when she can understand, when she needs to know that families aren't perfect, that people make mistakes, but that they can also change, and that true love isn't the kind that never breaks. It's the kind that breaks and still finds a way to keep existing, different, but real. Tom wipes a tear. I love you, Mum, and I'm so sorry I hurt you. I know, son. I know. That night, after Tom and Valerie leave, I stay alone in the house, like every night, as I have been for 3 years. But I no longer feel lonely, because I understood something fundamental. Being alone and feeling lonely are completely different things. I am alone because I chose to set limits, because I chose my dignity over the comfort of pretending everything was fine, because I chose to face the storm instead of hiding from it. But I don't feel lonely, because I have my house, my peace, my integrity, my granddaughter who visits me, my son who is learning, my life that is finally mine, and that at the end of the day is all a person needs. I receive an unexpected call on a Tuesday afternoon. It's Amy. We haven't spoken directly in almost 2 years. I've only seen her from afar during Valerie's exchanges at the courthouse. Mrs. Mary, can I talk to you? Of course, Amy. Tell me. Silence, nervous breathing. I wanted to thank you. Thank me? For what? For not letting me get away with it. For defending your house. For setting a limit for me when no one else would. Because if you hadn't, I would still be the same horrible person I was. And I would have never learned. I would have never changed. Her words surprise me, not for what they say, but for how genuine they sound. And have you changed, Amy? I'm trying. I'm still working at the coffee shop. I saved up for a pastry course. I want to open my own business someday. Something small, but mine. Earned with my own effort. I'm happy for you. And I'm going to therapy, just like Tom. I'm learning to be a better mum for Valerie. To not use money as a substitute for love. To be present. Not perfect, but present. That's what children need. Not perfection. Presence. Mrs. Mary, I know I'll never be able to make up for everything I did to you. I know we'll never be family in the traditional sense. But I want you to know that I respect you, and that if my daughter grows up to be even half as strong as you, I'll consider myself successful. I don't know what to say. The words get stuck in my throat. Thank you, Amy. That means a lot. Do you think someday we could, I don't know, get coffee, talk, not as enemies, but as 2 women who went through the same thing and survived? I think about it, and I surprise myself when I say, yes, I think we can, someday when we're ready. Thank you, Mrs. Mary, for everything, for being the mirror where I had to look at myself, even if I didn't like what I saw. We hung up, and I was left sitting in my living room, looking at the walls of my house, thinking about how strange life is, about how the people who hurt us the most are sometimes the ones who learn the most from us, and about how pain, when processed correctly, can turn into wisdom. One Sunday, 3.5 years after everything, Carol and I are drinking coffee in her kitchen, as we have done for 40 years, as we will continue to do until one of us is no longer here. You know what I admire most about you, Mary, she says suddenly. What? That you never became bitter. After everything that happened, many women would have become hard, resentful, closed off. But you didn't. You kept being you, just stronger. I don't always feel strong, Carol. No one feels strong all the time, my dear. Strength is not about not being afraid. It's about being afraid and still doing the right thing. And do you think I did the right thing? What do you think? I think about it. I think about the whole journey, everything lost, everything gained. I think I did the only thing I could do, and that has to be enough. Carol smiles, that wise smile of someone who has lived too much and seen too much. That's not just enough, Mary, it's everything. Today, as I write this in my journal, as I leave these words as a testimony of what I lived, I think about all the women who are going through the same thing I went through. The women who are being manipulated by their children, by their partners, by their family. The women who are giving and giving until they have nothing left. The women who are afraid to set limits because they fear being left alone. And I want to tell them something. It's better to be alone than to be accompanied by people who destroy you. It's better to lose everything than to lose your dignity. It's better to face the storm than to live under the shadow of constant threat. Because in the end, the only thing that truly belongs to you is your integrity. And if you give it away out of fear, out of misunderstood love, out of not facing conflict, then you've lost everything anyway. I lost my son for a time. I lost my granddaughter. I lost the fantasy of the perfect family that never existed, but I gained something more valuable. I gained my self-respect. I gained the peace of sleeping, knowing that I did not betray my principles. I gained the strength of knowing that I can survive anything. And eventually, I gained back a more honest version of my family. Not perfect, not without scars, but real. Valerie just walked into the living room. She climbs onto my lap with a storybook. Grandma, read to me. Of course, my love. Which one do you want? The one about the brave princess. I smile. Because life has these ironies. I open the book. It's the story of a princess who has to face a dragon, not so a prince can save her, but to save herself. Once upon a time, there was a princess who lived in a beautiful castle, I begin to read. But one day, she discovered that the dragon threatening her didn't live outside the castle. It lived inside, and it was much harder to defeat. Did she defeat it? Valerie asks. Yes, my love. She defeated it. Not with a sword, but with something more powerful. What? With the truth, and with the decision to stop being afraid. Valerie looks at me with those enormous eyes that absorb everything. Did you defeat a dragon too, Grandma? My voice breaks a little. Yes, my darling, I defeated a dragon too. And how did you do it? The same way the princess did, with the truth, and by letting go of fear. And were you happy afterward? I look out the window. The sun is setting over the yard. The lilac bush is still blooming. Tom is in the kitchen preparing dinner. The house smells of chili and cornbread. I breathe. Yes, my love, I was happy. Not always, not perfectly, but I was happy because I was finally free. Valerie smiles and snuggles against my chest. I want to be brave like you too, Grandma. You already are, my darling, you already are. If my story helps just one woman open her eyes, it will have been worth it. If my pain serves for someone else to set limits before it's too late, it will have made sense. If my experience gives strength to another grandmother, another mother, another woman who is being manipulated by those she should love, then every tear I shed will have watered something good, because life always collects its debts. Always. Not with our revenge, but with its own consequences. And in the end, the only thing that remains is the truth of who we are, of what we did, of what we chose to defend. I chose to defend myself, and I don't regret it. Because in that terrible moment, when my son raised the belt, when my daughter-in-law laughed, when I thought I had lost everything, someone rang the doorbell. And that someone was life itself, reminding me that I wasn't alone, that I was never alone, that there is always a way out when you have the courage to look for it. Today, I live in my house, the house I paid for with 40 years of work, the house I was about to lose, the house I defended with everything I had. And every morning, when I wake up and see the sun coming through my window, I give thanks. Not because everything is perfect, but because it's mine, earned, defended, deserved. And that, in the end, is the only thing that matters. Thank you for listening to the end. If this story touched your heart, subscribe and hit the notification bell to hear more stories of women who transformed their pain into wisdom. Every day, one woman, one life lesson. Share this story with someone you love. Sometimes a story like this can change an entire day. God bless you, and until next time.